Good afternoon, Inner Goddess Team fans, community, spirited living community. Deborah Roth here again, and I'm a little frazzled. Just got back from 3 days with my wonderful. That part of it wasn't frazzling; it was just the drive back from my wonderful, seeing my wonderful 93-year-old mom up in Mystic, Connecticut. So taking a deep breath. Hello, Terry. Wonderful to see you. And I'm excited to introduce you to this very auspicious goddess that I decided I wanted to focus on this week. And if you know what I do here, those of you that have found me before, and if you're just watching this for the first time, whether today or I always post it on my YouTube channel. So you may be watching this months from now. As I always say, when we're looking at these divinely feminine archetypes, the idea is that they represent the qualities, the sacred feminine qualities that our world so desperately needs now. And we all carry them within us, male or female. It's not assigned to gender at all. And when I first started really learning about goddesses 30 years ago or something, the phrase 10,000 faces of the goddess was the phrase that we learned, because every culture has them, has these personifications. And what they represent for us is the best of those qualities that we can call on when we want to bring up that particular member of our inner goddess team, as I call it, whether it's compassion or empathy or honoring our mental brilliance, honoring our intuition, our emotions, our connection to nature. Somewhere in this video, my wonderful web goddess always puts in a little I that gives you more information about the divine feminine. So this week, we are looking at a Chinese water goddess, Benzaiten. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but she's also, hey Tariel, she's also shortened. It's also known as Benten, Benten, and I give a much longer description about who she is and how you can call on her, call on that energy, no matter when it is, in the YouTube description. So, and the reason that I chose her, I've been looking at water goddesses this month, ever since the summer solstice, when the sun goes into Cancer, which is a water sign. I am a Cancer. My birthday was a couple weeks ago. And she is the quintessential goddess of everything that flows. Water, obviously, but also, and I've got to look at my notes because she's one that I didn't know a whole lot about. Words, speech, eloquence, music, and by extension, knowledge of all kinds. She's very much associated with Sarasvati in the Hindu tradition, and in fact, her origins were from India. She's got a couple different iterations, different ways that she has evolved through the centuries, and I'll hit on a little bit of those today. So she is she's referred to as the river goddess, the water goddess, the bestower of language and letters, goddess of wealth and good fortune. That was one of her later manifestations, and I'll describe that in a minute. Her name is written in two ways, one which means dispenser of heavenly wisdom, and the other is dispenser of divine wealth. So that gives you, she's not quite an all-purpose goddess. She's pretty much about flow, wherever you want flow to show up in your life. She was originally a Hindu deity, and she arrived in Japan sometime in the 7th century. And she was adopted into Japan's Buddhist pantheon, if you will, as an 8-armed warrior goddess. And I did a couple representations of her. This is her in one of her earliest orientations. And in her 8 arms, she's holding a bow and an arrow and a wheel and a bunch of other things, a key, let's see if I can find it, a jewel, a sword. And she was thought to be the Sutra of Golden Light. And then when one of her next evolutions, when Mikyo Buddhism was introduced to the Japanese in the early 9th century, then her role as the goddess of music deepened. And then she was portrayed, and I've got one of her in this regard, as playing the biwa, I think it was called. Yes, the biwa, which is a traditional, let's make sure I'm holding it the right way, although I don't know how much you're going to be able to see it. Oh my goodness. There she is, holding a biwa, which is a guitar, or a lute, actually, the Japanese lute. And she's often depicted, and this is part of her mythology, either riding a dragon or she is surrounded by dragons and snakes. Those are her totem animals, if you will. And that story, that mythology, is said, because she is said, Benten, remember that's her shortened name, is said to have descended to earth and where she met and married a dragon in order to stop him from eating young children. And he was tamed because of this. And so that's why she's often depicted riding a dragon. She's also, and in her Indian origin, she is often portrayed as the slayer of Vritra, who was a serpent from the ancient Indian text, the Rig Veda. So she's got lots of serpent dragon energy. And those of you that are familiar with the symbolism of the serpent, it's not this scary thing that we've made it out to be, but actually in ancient cultures all over the world, serpents and snakes were really believed to be symbols of transformation because they shed their skin, they come anew. So they were very revered in just about all the ancient cultures. Let's see. Oh, and I loved this one. So more of her dragon story. She was also depicted as a dragon woman who swam through her domain with a bunch of snakes. I've talked about that. And when she was in her dragon form, she protected her devotees from earthquakes by mating with the monstrous snakes that thrashed underneath the Japanese islands. And by mating with them, she calmed them so that they wouldn't cause earthquakes. I love hearing where these come from. So she basically, and then she evolved even further. And at some point, I think that was the 14th or 15th centuries, the spelling of her name changed, and she became associated with wealth and good fortune. So you got to know she got really popular then. And she became one of the 7 lucky gods. And if you Google that anywhere, you'll see, most obviously the other ones are, I think, the 6 other ones are male, but she's a very powerful female goddess of wealth and good fortune, beauty and song. So it's weaving together all of these iterations, all of these evolutions that she went through when first starting in India and then coming to Japan. So as many of you know, one of my favorite references is Patricia Moynihan, who's done wonderful research on all the different goddesses. And I love some of the ways that she suggests that we can invoke Benzen or Benzaiten. And that sprinkle some salt water on the threshold of your home, on your doorstep, to attract prosperity. Remember, Benzaiten is a water goddess, coming from the sea. Do this too, soak in a bath with Epsom salts and to really clear yourself out and to invoke your beauty both inside and out, which I loved. Now, the final image I'll show you, which is kind of fun, she, and I mentioned this at the beginning, she remains really popular. And to the point where if you go to some of her temples, they actually have, they sell modern representations of the goddess in anime form, that Japanese kind of cartoon form. So there she is in her anime form. So I think, and I've probably sung this other months too, but it's one of my favorites. But the chant that I'll share with you before we sign off is my classic favorite water chant. And it goes like this, and it's the water goddess chant. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. I probably sang that the last time, maybe 2 weeks ago, when I did a water goddess during this Cancer time, but you can't sing that chant too much. It's just too lovely, and it's one of those ones that gets happily stuck in your brain. So I invite you, whether you're watching today or later on, to really find out a little bit more about Benzaiten, Benzaiten, and invoke her when you need special, thanks Nicole, when you need just a little extra help with expressing yourself. Remember, she's connected to Sarasvati, who's the goddess of speech and writing and eloquence, and also when you want to attract abundance. So think about those areas in your life, and let me know if you find out any other juicy things about her. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you back here next week. Bye for now. Namaste.